You're listening to the Future Tech Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies such as artificial intelligence, stem cells, 3D printing, gene editing, Bitcoin, blockchain, the microbiome, quantum computing, virtual reality, and exploring space are much closer than you might think. In fact, many early versions of these technologies are in play right now, and the companies that are using these technologies are the focus of this podcast. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a thorny medical problem. Remember, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and tell your friends about it. Thank you. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech and Future Tech Health podcast. I have Steve Zarpas. He's the founder of a company called PowerHouse Ketones. The website is phketo.com. Steve, thanks for coming. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it looks like you guys sell exogenous ketones, meaning ones that aren't naturally made in the body, that I guess you come in powder or liquid form, etc. How did you get into this area of nutrition?
In 2016, a friend of mine introduced me to Dr. Peach at NIH, and they developed a novel ketone ester, but they were having a hard time scaling up the synthesis to a commercial level. And my job was to eventually build a couple labs and hire a variety of organic chemists to figure out to scale the reaction from maybe making a liter a week to making it in 200 gallons vats at a time. And it was fascinating. Along the way, I learned an enormous amount about the metabolism of ketones, which I was shocked, basically finding out that there was a fourth food group I'd never heard of, in addition to protein, carbs, and fat. And it just opened up a whole new world to me.
Yeah, I've taken ketone salts myself, and I know that there's a lot of products that do ketone salts, and ketone esters, I guess, are a lot stronger and more fast-acting, but they're also, a lot more disgusting. So I've heard it's a big challenge to make these things palatable, whether they're esters or salts.
Well, there's something that's really important to get across. The majority of the ketone salts that are on the market, they're synthetic. And what I mean by that is ketones have a right-hand and a left-hand version, but only the right-hand version is bioactive, bioavailable. But it's extremely, until the NIH breakthrough, it was just cost prohibitive to try and make a compound that was 100% natural or 100% right-handed. And to give you an idea, there was a company that sold ketone ester. When I first got involved in the project, they were selling it for $1,100 a gram. Now, that's imagine some of the elite athletes are taking 60 grams at once. That'd be kind of a pricey supplement. So a big difference in the ketone ester is it's completely right hand as opposed to the salts. That's portion of the reason why the ester is so much stronger. My focus is a completely right hand ketone acid, which is exactly what your liver makes when your body converts fat into ketones. It makes the acid, and I'm focusing in on that acid. So comparing ketones and using that word very generally is not really informative, because for a lot of people, they've probably heard of some of the benefits. They're like, I'm going to go out and get some ketones, and most people are going to default to the cheapest one gets the win. So it's a little difficult really comparing them straight across.
So I've heard of beta hydroxybutyrate. Is that the right and left-handed molecule? And I guess there's a few other molecules that comprise what we call ketones. But what are the molecules, and which ones have handedness, and which ones are going to be in your formulation?
Great. Beta hydroxybutyrate is the acid that your liver would make, but there's a D, stands for dextro. That means right hand. So coming from your liver would be D-beta hydroxybutyrate. That's an acid from which you can react it with the base and make a salt. A common base is sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. That would make sodium hydroxybutyrate. But the distinction would be what we're looking for is the D version, the right-handed version. So that acid, you can make a salt by combining it with a base like sodium bicarbonate, or you can make an ester by taking that acid and combining it with an alcohol. Like D13-butane-diol is the alcohol that the acid is combined with to make the famous NIH ester.
What's the famous NIH ester, and why is it famous? I'm not familiar with the NIH did or oversaw. Can you recap that?
Yes. So a big breakthrough happened in 2002 to 2007. DARPA paid $25 million to 5 teams to try and find the perfect human fuel for special operators for Navy SEALs. One of the teams was Dr. Richard Veitch from NIH and Dr. Kieran Clark from Oxford. They teamed up using the ester that Dr. Veitch invented at NIH. So Dr. Veitch was on the organic chemist side, though he's also an MD, knows metabolism, obviously. Dr. Clark oversaw the human trials. Well, of the 5 teams, that NIH ketone ester eclipsed everything in that test. So the way they ran it, each team got $2 million in the first year, and every year they'd eliminate a team. Well, at the end of 5 years, it was Dr. Veitch and Dr. Clark with the ketone ester that had not only shown considerable increases in the performance and the endurance of what are basically elite athletes, but perhaps most shocking was at the end of normally very debilitating trials, there's a cognitive impairment. You get mentally tired when you work really hard. Well, these soldiers, they maintain baseline cognition throughout. And that's when DARPA and the Pentagon were like, we'll take as much of this as you can make. It's compact. It's a super dense source of energy. It improves cognition. What better to give these soldiers on multi-day trials or missions than this source of food? And that was part of the problem, where they could make it on the bench, but nobody could figure out how to make it at a commercially viable scale. So that the results of those DARPA Pentagon trials are what many, if not all of the other ketone companies point to. All the ketone salt companies are like, look at this unbelievable data. Problem is, none of that is possible with the ketone salts that are on the market. You just can't safely raise the blood levels high enough without exceeding your limit for salt to achieve what was achieved by the NIH ketone ester. So in our world,
the ketone salts, and they do seem to have an effect, but what's the difference? They have some effect, right? What's the difference between the salts and the esters that you've seen?
For the ketone salts to really have an effect, you've got to be in just the bare beginnings of ketosis. You have to have, they measure serum ketones in the millimolars. So technically they consider ketosis begins at 0.5. But if you even have 0.1 or 0.2 and you take those ketone salts, you might get up to 0.5, 0.6 and be technically in ketosis. But if you start at absolute 0 and take the salts, I don't know, you might get to 0.1. So there is a place for the salts without a doubt, and prove it. The number one ketone selling company in the world has done an incredible job at educating people. And while I'm talking about prove it for a second, they are the only company I know of that actually makes 100% bioavailable salt, and which they sell under the NAT logo. So there's a place, but if you're like most people and you just heard of keto and this and that and diet, and you go out and buy some supplements, if you're not on a keto diet and you take most of those salts on Amazon or eBay or whatever, the only effect it's going to have is mental.
So the only effect would be what? Increase the cognitive ability, or at least increase clarity?
Yes.
Can you say mental?
Increase the clarity. To me, you got to get to at least 0.7 to start feeling some of the cognition, and that's just from zero. There's no way you're going to go from 0 to 0.7. Taking the racemic, the synthetic salts that are out there. So it's difficult. It gets into biochemistry. A lot of people, when I start talking about it, they kind of glaze over, but it's important because the implications for hundreds of millions of people are really profound. That the metabolic advantage of having a decent amount of circulating ketones in your blood is incredible. It's really incredible, and affects a variety of diseases because it improves your metabolism at the most basic level. It'd be like, imagine living in a house and the heaters, you can never get above like 40 degrees. Everybody in the house is cold. They're trying to do their jobs and they're miserable. And suddenly some new fuel gets put in the furnace, and now the house is at 70. Everybody's working hard, doing their job, feeling great. Ketones have the potential to do that. And, dietary ketosis is the preferential route, but a lot of people simply just can't stick to that ketogenic diet. And there's millions of people that say they're following the ketogenic diet and they think they're in ketosis, but if they go to check their blood, they're not. And that's why urine and blood testing is absolutely critical.
I was going to joke and say, before you explain your product to anyone, you should require them to take it. So then they'll have better cognitive ability to understand you and not have their eyes glaze over. Anytime you present this, that's what you should do, is give it to the audience first.
Anybody that considers working with me, working with our company, I make sure I send them some first and let them feel it. But the degree to which you feel it is going to be a measure of your individual glucose metabolism impairment, which tends to be age related. So starting at about 35 years old, seems that we naturally develop a glucose impairment, which is very pronounced in the brain, where you're no longer able to metabolize glucose efficiently like you did as a kid or a young man. And as we get older, it gets worse and worse, mild cognitive impairment, all the way to Alzheimer's disease. And so the point I'm trying to make is some people feel it a very pronounced, obvious, unbelievable effect. Other people, it's kind of subtle. Some people don't feel it at all, but it's important for them to try it. And when the lights turn on for certain people, it's like, wow, unbelievable. I haven't felt this clear-headed in a long time, and I hadn't realized the extent of my cognitive impairment. So you make a great point. People should try it first.
Well, quick. All right. So what is the, when you take it, what form is it in, liquid or powder? And how long does it take to feel the effects, and how long until the effects wear off?
Mine's in a liquid form. The acid is extremely difficult to turn into a dry form. It breaks down under normal laboratory means of taking a liquid that's dissolved, or taking an acid or a salt that's dissolved in water and then just drying it out. You can't just dry it out normally. So my products that we're going to release, as they have not been released yet, it's going to be in the aqueous form, a liquid ready to drink functional beverage.
And again,
eventually,
so take it, and how long will it take for it to take effect, and then how long until it wears off?
People feel it in about 15 minutes. We can start measuring a pretty big jump in ketone levels certainly within 15 minutes. It gets into your bloodstream very rapidly, depending on how much you take and if you're exercising. It's funny, if you take a relatively small amount and you begin exercising, it stays in your blood a long time. What we believe, it's promoting endogenous production of ketones. It starts promoting your own fat burning. Let's just say for a 170-pound person, what I would consider a modest dose, about 10 grams of the net active, it could last 3 hours. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, for some of the elite athletes, when talking about ketone ester. Some of them are taking 60 grams. They start feeling it again within 15 minutes. But if they're exerting themselves, they could easily burn that up in an hour, which is enough for some of them to set PRs and having a really incredible performance. So,
but if someone's sedentary, they're like a desk jockey or something, they're just going to a regular work, how long do you think it may last, the effects?
3 hours. About my mom, for instance, perfect example. She's 95 years old. She's relatively sedentary. She lives alone, unassisted. She'll drink it, and let's say 8 o'clock in the morning, she's feeling it till about 2 o'clock, at which point she might take a nap, and then in the afternoon, she takes a second dose. But the cognitive effects are obvious. I can tell when we're on the phone if she's taking it or not based on word retrieval delays, the frustration that comes with word retrieval, her overall energy level. It's pretty obvious. So with someone like you might notice you just feel sharper. You feel like you're just having a really good day. You're able to multitask, much better. And let's say you've got a big presentation or a really important interview. Chances are it would go exactly how you'd hope it would go. You'd remember every question you wanted to answer, but it can be subtle. It's not drastic like taking some drug or Adderall or something.
And you don't crash. I think once or twice, probably once I had Adderall. I don't know why, to try it. And for a while I felt overstimulated, like frenzied, crazed. I felt like I could do a lot of work, but it was so intense that I don't think I was getting any work done. And then when you crash, you feel awful. But on at least so far in ketone salts, you just feel energized and not crazed. So it'd be interesting to try the ester version.
You really should, and be able to compare it for yourself, because that is, when you ask how long it lasts, it fades off so gradually that sometimes it's really kind of hard. It's better to, we do every 15 minutes, we take blood draws to find out, analytically where you're at, how long it lasts. But if we're asking somebody subjectively, it's half a day, they'll typically say. So,
okay, yeah, that's long. So it's a liquid. So how do you take it? I took one that was a non-flavored liquid. I think it's Keto Force, and I would put a little bit of lemon juice in it and some water, and then it was like a margarita. That's how it tasted to me, and it wasn't so bad. But how do you recommend people take this ester? Just drink it plain, or should they put something in it to mask the taste?
Well, let's make the distinction. Mine is it's ketone acid, as opposed to say the NIH ester. Right now, I have just zero to do with any esters. They're not on my radar whatsoever. But for mine, I took some time to really formulate it. Mine's a beverage that you would think you're drinking. A couple guys at a conference I just went to were shocked. They said it tastes like Sprite. They were shocked. Thomas DeLauer, who's probably tested every single ketone on the market, he's like, I can't believe there's any ketones in this. And I go, I assure you there are. And as we're talking, about 15 minutes later, he's like, holy cow, I'm zinging. He's like, is it possible? I go, yeah, this acid gets into your blood system much faster than the ester. So they don't have to do anything to it. I just crack the top and drink it. It's an 8-ounce beverage for the acid that I make. Mm-hmm.
You combine it with MCT. I've heard, for instance, Dom D'Agostino talked about, maybe synergistic effects of combining at least ketone salts, possibly esters, with MCT.
There is a synergistic effect with MCT. It's really interesting, and it's not, in my opinion, from what I've found, it's not because MCT is converted into ketones. It's other effects that MCT oil has on metabolism that potentiates the salt that's in the formulations that he made. And we're really still just beginning to find out some of the detailed metabolic processes that are happening when you introduce exogenous ketones. My product doesn't have any MCT oil in it, It doesn't need it. What I've made is far stronger than any ketone salt and MCT oil. I've discovered other things about how ketones are metabolized in order to potentiate the serum levels of ketones. Dom did some really groundbreaking work when he discovered that MCT oil potentiated the ketone salts.
Okay, well, very good. Well, I don't know if you can comment on the health effects or the health benefits. There's the cognition effects, but health-wise, are there conditions that I don't even know if we're allowed to say this or not, but are there conditions that taking the ketones regularly may assist with to change the outcome of it, or for diet?
There's so many. It's amazing. If you give me a minute, I just want to maybe paint a little metaphoric picture. So this is how I've explained it. Some people seem to work. Imagine a little cabin in the mountains of Colorado. You've got a mother, a father, and a kid. They each have jobs. The father's job is to take logs and cut them into very discrete 30-inch sections, split them, put them in the fireplace. The mother's job is to order logs that get cut up. The kid's job is to clean up the ashes to keep the chimney clean. So the chimney is the mitochondria. It's where fuel gets burned. Now imagine your dad developed a drinking problem. Okay, he's impaired, like what happens with carbohydrate metabolism as we get old. He's no longer able to chop enough wood and put it in the 30-inch pieces just perfectly in the fireplace to keep the house warm. So he just starts shoving logs in. Well, they're no longer burning efficiently. The house is filled up with smoke. It's cold inside. The son and the mom are mad, and everything just turned into a shit show. And then one day somebody shows up with the new fuel. It's like those. Have you ever seen those little camping bricks? Hexamine, Nesbit. You go camping. There are these little white cubes. They burn super hot. Well, imagine a super efficient fuel. It goes in the fireplace. All the smoke goes away. The temperature in the house rises. Everybody's happy. They can do their jobs. That's how basically ketones work, by increasing just the overall metabolic efficiency. So it might sound hard to believe, but ketones are directly indicated for huge variety of issues, from obesity to diabetes to cancer, neurodegenerative disease, acute stroke, and heart disease. Because by giving your cells a fuel that they can efficiently use, all the other processes in the cell are improved. And the outlook is far better. So there are a lot of papers that speak to all those diseases I just spoke about. The difficulty and the kind of the great news is, until now, there was really only the synthetic salt, where researchers could not really safely raise the blood levels with these exogenous ketones, equivalent to what your liver could do if you were in a peak ketosis. Now, with these breakthroughs, with the 100% bioavailable products, as word spreads in the research community, they're going to find out, wow, we can start testing human beings safely with these new 100% bioavailable ketones. And I imagine there's going to be a big explosion in research. I know there is. I'm already hearing it. People are contacting me from all over the world into all these areas: neurodegenerative disease, heart disease, stroke, traumatic brain injury, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, mild cognitive impairment, obesity. This is what really got me excited. When I started first reading the papers, I couldn't believe it. It's like, this is too good to be true. But here I'm reading peer-reviewed papers from unimpeachable sources, not some kooky little lab somewhere in some province of China. We're talking Harvard and Oxford and NIH. Unbelievable.
So what are some of the ways, anecdotally, you've heard, like, how do you take them? And then what are various ways that you've heard from customers or other people on how they take it themselves and what they use it for?
Well, there's a researcher I work closely with at NIH. He has advanced Parkinson's, and he's been taking the ketone ester. I traveled with him to a conference where he was going to present a paper, and I show up to his room. We've got 15 minutes to get to the floor, and his shirt's untucked, and he's walking around in circles, and he's shaking. And I immediately knew, hey, damn it, take the ester. He's like, oh my God, I forgot. The difference is so stunning to see it happen in real time. Takes the ester. 20 minutes later, his hands aren't shaking. Cognitively, he's sharp. He has all the papers that he needs to support the poster that he's presenting, and it's remarkable. I've seen equally impressive effects on advanced Alzheimer's. I see it in my mom on the cognition side. At the same time, I've worked with a bunch of athletes, and professional and elite athletes. We can pretty regularly see 6 to 8 up to 10% improvement over like personal record performance. I've seen that happen. I've had stockbroker with the ketone ester. First day he took it, he said, I've had the most productive day I've had in 20 years. And he immediately ordered enough ketone ester. He managed a team of 8 brokers. He bought enough that all 8 of his brokers had to take it every single day. That it became mandatory. So, I mean, I've seen this. As far as myself, I tend to use it to extend my workout, to make my workout easier, and to increase my endurance, and that my recovery is a lot quicker. I can get in more workouts per week if I take ketones before, during, or after my workout. There's an important complex called mTOR, M-T-O-R, mammalian target of rapamycin. That mechanism basically runs how protein is synthesized, muscle protein is synthesized in response to trauma, to like working out. Well, if you can upregulate it, you can recover more quickly, and you can lay down protein more rapidly. And that's a reason I use it for the ketones. So that's a handful of things. I've also shockingly discovered last month, after having probably tested my blood 1,000 times in the last 3.5, almost 4 years for ketones, I finally decided to check my glucose just to measure how powerfully the ketone acid would lower my glucose. Well, I've come to find out my fasting glucose is 122. It's like, oh my God, I'm in pre-diabetic, almost at the diabetic level. I'd not been eating well recently. I'd not been exercising. So within this last month, I've got my fasting glucose to be under 100. I'm exercising again, and the ketones also, they help lower my glucose. So those are a couple of reasons why I'm using it.
What you said you've done like blood tests every 15 minutes. So what are some of the biomarkers that change over the 15 minutes, and what have you observed, for instance?
Well, you can get strips for serum glucose and millimolars, and for glucose. So one of the days after I'd found I was 122, the following day I decided to take a relatively large dose of 60 grams of the acid. Well, my blood level went from 122 to 90 in about half hour, at which point my blood sugar for me was so low, I was incapacitated. And I started to lie down, but I realized, wait a minute, I've got another hour and a half of blood tests to take. But I was so lethargic and so cognitively impaired, I forced myself to eat a scoop of ice cream. I had to bring my my sugar up enough to give my brain the fuel it needed just to not be completely fatigued. That was a pretty drastic drop in glucose numbers, but the feeling was like somebody had given me a sleeping pill or something.
Why not?
Those are the only markers.
Why wouldn't you wear for your experimentation? Why not get a continuous glucose monitor so you don't have to, do blood draws every 15 minutes, and then you could see the path of what your glucose is doing before, during, after, etc. You could experiment on them. They're pretty easy to use.
Oh, I imagine. I just haven't been able to find a doctor that would write me a prescription for one. I contacted a couple of the manufacturers and said, send me one. I'm doing research. And they were kind of hemming and hawing. And, that was when they first came out. And I haven't tried to find one. I would love a continuous glucose monitor.
If you go to a concierge doc, maybe even a functional one, they're likely to be able to, more likely to recommend it to you. The Lifestyle Libre and the Dexcom G6, I've tried both, and both work really well.
Wow. Do you still have one?
Yeah.
I guess you could get another one, because I'd love to send you some acid, and you can watch your numbers go down. I'm currently working with a heavyweight boxer who's got he's ranked, internationally ranked, and he's training for what will lead to a title shot. And we're introducing ketones into his workout regimen. But what I've got to find out is where his normal glucose metabolism is. Like, if check him before he starts working out and then during the workout. And as I introduce ketones, what I want to do, I have to then also supplement him with glucose so that he doesn't dip below that, what would be his normal glucose levels. And we're just beginning to do that. And I'd love to have a continuous glucose monitor on him. It'd be such a much easier job.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that offline. But, we'll wrap up here in a minute. So the ketones that you're making, they're commercially available now. People can, where can they go to buy them?
Ours, we're going to be out by the end of the year. It'll be available through our website. We are just wrapping up, artwork and nutritional panel. The formulation is all done. It's been all done. So we have some work, obviously, to do on our website. We should have our e-commerce enabled website done in the next couple of weeks. And we hope to launch in December. And simultaneously, we're going to set up to be able to wholesale to select clients the 100% bioavailable acid and salts thereof early next year, mid next year. We're talking with groups all over the planet. It's not easy to make it.
Well, Steve, that's excellent, and it's great work you're doing. So best way for people to find out more is to go to phketones.com.
phketo.com. Yes.
PHKeto. Okay. phketo.com. Excellent. Well, Steve, thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it more than you do. Believe me.
You're listening to the Future Tech Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies such as artificial intelligence, stem cells, 3D printing, gene editing, Bitcoin, blockchain, the microbiome, quantum computing, virtual reality, and exploring space are much closer than you might think. In fact, many early versions of these technologies are in play right now, and the companies that are using these technologies are the focus of this podcast. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a thorny medical problem. Remember, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and tell your friends about it. Thank you.